Goku versus Cars. When it comes to the Ultimate Fighters, these are the two I always primarily think about. Cars being the physical manifestation of somebody just literally being better than you because of genetics. Cars being the ultimate life form puts them on a pedestal that not a lot of people in fiction can really get to. It would take an insane amount of dedication and skill to reach those kind of levels if it was even physically possible. However, a character like that exists. Son Goku, being a Saiyan raised on Earth, has dedicated his entire life to being the ultimate martial artist, and in his 40 years of living, he has reached the domain of the gods, proving time and again that effort and hard work will always surpass the ideas of being born better. In specific with this case, made better. So what happens when ultimate adaptation and the ultimate strength of every living creature on Earth goes up against the ultimate Saiyan fighter who was raised on Earth? Introduction aside, hello, my name is Metas.
あるかもしれない。
Now, the versions of the characters we'll be using in this fight will be novel cars, as I feel like it adds a much more interesting twist and discussion with this versus video, and we'll be using manga Goku here as well, as this is the most up-to-date Goku in terms of power. And while I could do both and scale both pretty well, I thought I would bring on a friend to explain the Goku side of things, while I explain cars and novel cars for you guys. And with me today is Lonk from Lonk's Takes.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's me, Lonk's Takes. You know me from things such as Lonk's Takes, and I'll be kind of just going over manga Goku scaling, especially from Dragon Ball Super. The main thing that pretty much everyone knows when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, and especially Goku scaling, is pretty much the best feat in the entire story happens in literally the first arc of the show. You have Goku getting Super Saiyan God and fighting with Beerus. In this fight, they both clash, and the shockwaves of these punches that they're sharing are stated essentially repeatedly, especially more in the anime, but also in the manga, that they're going to destroy the entirety of Universe 7. Now, people make these weird arguments that like, oh, Beerus is the one only contributing to this because he's way stronger than Goku here. But the entire point of these clashes here is that Goku becomes able to control his power and cancel out these shockwaves from happening. And this also explains why something like this essentially never happens again in Dragon Ball Super, because now the people who are fighting now all know how to cancel out this energy. It was only Goku before who didn't know, and Beerus at this point didn't care. He's a god of destruction. That's kind of like his whole thing, that he destroys things. So anyways, the also major difference between the manga and the anime here is that in the anime, a lot of people are familiar with, Goku absorbs this power into his base form, essentially becoming his Super Saiyan God becomes like his base power, and that sends him skyrocketing in strength. The thing is, in the manga, this actually doesn't happen. They clash, he fights Beerus, he loses but gains Beerus' respect, and that's it. So the scaling doesn't get quite as ridiculous. Still, either way, this feat is what we call, like in the power scaling community, of low multiversal, because Universe 7 isn't just one universe. You have things like the living world, you have the other world that then contains several realms within it, you have like the Kai realm, you have hell, you have heaven, and so all these things come together and have their own universal size statements and come together to be kind of like this small multiversal structure. And for Goku to essentially reach all these realms at once and have his power be able to destroy all of them, it comes out to this low multiversal tier. And the main problem beyond this is that we don't get too much quantification of how much stronger Goku gets after this. And the thing is that the low multiversal tier is so absolutely massive that even saying he's like 1,000 times stronger, he's still just low multiversal. But still, for the sake of this, we can go over a few things. For example, in the next arc, Resurrection F, which is actually skipped in the manga, so technically the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 arc, he gets Super Saiyan Blue, which is repeatedly described as just Super Saiyan God going Super Saiyan. Now, it can be a whole separate video talking about what the Super Saiyan multiplier is. At bare minimum, it's 50 times, but if you want to be like an edgy debater man and get as big a number as humanly possible, you can make some arguments that it's more like 500 times or even well beyond that. But yeah, so at least 50 times stronger. Of course, next you have the Goku Black arc. They technically do get a new transformation during this arc, which is perfected Super Saiyan Blue. The only issue is that we have literally zero clue how strong this form is. is it is described as essentially Super Saiyan Blue, but you're not leaking all your ki out when you transform, and you're essentially like super concentrating into it. You can kind of think of it as like the mastering Super Saiyan that they did in the Cell Saga, but now it's for Super Saiyan Blue. So again, it's probably a lot stronger as it fights like Merge Zamasu, which is super impressive, but again, who knows how actually strong it is. You can maybe make another quantification of a strength growth during this arc, because at the start of the arc, Vegeta loses really badly to Goku Black before he gets Rose, and by the end of it in Blue, they're able to fight Rose Goku Black. So you can say he got like a Rose level time stronger or something like that, but again, can't really super quantify it beyond just the Super Saiyan God, and again, that low multi-tier, it doesn't change anything. Yeah, so next you have the Tournament of Power, and of course, the main thing in this arc is that Goku gets Mastered Ultra Instinct. The best you can say for Mastered Ultra Instinct is that it is maybe unquantifiably above 20 times that perfected Super Saiyan Blue level, because people actually don't know this, but in the manga, Goku uses kind of Blue Kaioken. He doesn't actually use Kaioken, but it's described as using Blue in a Kaioken-like way. And so at that time,
it's so silly, bro.
Yeah,
it's not Kaioken, but it is.
Assuming that he's using it like Kaioken times 20, like you can kind of say that like, okay, sure, yeah, so it's the same as like the anime version, and I guess that's why they did it. So it was kind of like the anime. Either way, Mastered Ultra Instinct and even UI Sign, I should say, are just drastically above that. Essentially, nobody compares to that form at that point besides Jiren. The form goes on to fight Jiren, but again, the blue levels just don't compare to Jiren at all, and then UI is able to like gut check him and copy the Goku and Piccolo gut punch, but that's neither here nor there. And then we finally get to the kind of unique manga only stuff people who've only seen the anime like super aren't familiar with and have probably only seen from like anime edits. You have the Broly movie, which they just skip. There is a kind of mistranslation that says they're stronger than ever going out of the Broly movie, but apparently this actually like isn't true. That's not what it actually says. People used it to say that like, oh, now Blue Goku is stronger than MUI Goku. No, unfortunately, he didn't get that much stronger just fighting Broly. But now we get to the Moro arc, and in this arc, they just do so much training during this arc and develop. It is actually insane. But the main thing to note is that by the end, Moro is the strongest person that Goku's ever fought. People argue because, oh, he says toughest person. It's the strongest person he's ever fought. Like, I don't know why we're like debating like Jiren versus Moro in Big 2024. Then in MUI, he's able to be an even stronger version of Moro, and seems way more powerful in it. And kind of the same thing goes for the Granola arc, which follows afterwards. He again is just better at Mastered Ultra Instinct than he was before, is able to become essentially or fight against the guy who is the strongest mortal in the universe at the time, and eventually gets true UI, which is just again vaguely stronger than Mastered Ultra Instinct. There are too many Ultra Instinct forms. However, 2i is weaker than the likes of Black Frieza and literally gets one shot by him, so clearly he still has a long ways to go before he reaches like the pinnacle of the verse as it is currently. Now, he is not really present in Superhero. Gohan gets a huge buff, Beast Gohan. He doesn't have as many statements of being like the strongest as he does in like the anime or for the movie, but by the time that Goku and Gohan fight in like the final chapter of the DBS manga, they are called the strongest versus the strongest, and are both going at full power, and Goku isn't in TUI for some reason, seeming to be that, at least to me, that MUI has become Goku's strongest form. So just for a summary of everything that I just said, if it's too long, didn't listen, Goku is low multi in the first arc of Dragon Ball Super, at least in Super Saiyan God, and then gets like 4 stronger forms than this while training like for dozens of different times and getting dozens of different power-ups. So overall, he's extremely strong. I guess I should also cover speed, even though I usually think attack power is more important. I at least think he's obviously massively faster than light. These attacks are traveling across these like multiple universe-sized structures. If you want to be really edgy and say that these are infinite-sized universes based on like Daijensu statements, or that you actually think that Granola is faster than instant transmission like they say during the Granola arc, you could maybe say he's infinite speed. I personally really don't believe in it. He still uses instant transmission. It's still relevant to him, and if he had infinite speed, it probably wouldn't be, but that's just my personal take.
So when it comes to novel car scaling, it is a lot simpler to explain than Goku's, shockingly enough. Novel cars Cars is the continuation of his Part 2 variation, who is genuinely considered one of the physically strongest characters within the original timeline and continuity of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But thanks to George Joestar, Novel Cars is a completely different animal in all regards, and is genuinely considered amongst the community to be like the third strongest character in the entire franchise that is not getting help from the author. So looking at his feats and stats, Cars is notable for two major ones, one of them being Cars falling down an infinite shaft, hitting the ground so hard it's the only time throughout the entire book where he has to take some time to regenerate. Why this is important is other characters gain the ability of the ultimate life form, and what that entails is you have every creature on Earth's abilities and techniques all wrapped up into one at their best, if not better. And in these moments, Cars and Dio are just coming back from it like it's nothing, as when their fists make contact with each other, they just blow up. The reason why this is relevant is later in the story, Cars proceeds to blow himself up for every hour the universe has ever existed 37 times over, which roughly equates to about 10 quadrillion years, which can be calced at multiversal or at bare minimum universal plus. So when we go back to the infinite vertical shaft and the fact that Cars was able to tank that and what the wording says here, pretty concrete, at least at the higher ends, you're looking at universal to multiversal in terms of durability. However, there are some statements that Cars says that he wouldn't be able to survive coming in from the atmosphere to the surface of the Earth. So it kind of does get a little bit fishy, but you can calc that at country plus level, as he was able to flip an island once he made contact with the surface. That was roughly the size of Great Britain. So at minimum, country level. Now, unlike durability, thanks to the many clashes with other ultimate life forms and characters that are being boosted by the author, his AP is shockingly, if you want to lowball his durability, is higher than it. It can be in that universal to multiversal level, so it's pretty concrete there. So the speed scaling section here is actually ridiculously easy to scale, and that's thanks to Made in Heaven Ultimate Requiem just blatantly having infinite speed and having a much better showcase than his original variant in Part 6, as universes appear to be like basically disappearing when his ability activates as he resets the universe. So in terms of stats, you're looking at like a Boo Saga level character here. But when we're talking about hacks and abilities, this is where Cars outshines Goku, at least in my opinion, by a lot. Thanks to being the ultimate life form, he possesses basically everybody's ability on Earth. Man and animal, vampire, and pillarman. This basically gives Cars a massive IQ, insane regeneration, and a number of abilities I cannot explain because I don't want to edit all of that on screen, but here's some text for you to read. But yeah, he has a lot of hacks basically. But in the rare cases he doesn't know what he's fighting and needs to adapt, he can do it rather quickly. When facing stands, the manifestation of somebody else's fighting spirit, he was able to learn the concept within a few minutes after dissecting somebody else's stand. And after learning that, proceeds to gain his stand and everybody else's stand that he ever witnessed. And since Cars is the ultimate life form, those stand abilities scale to him. So these stand powers, compared to their original counterparts, are vastly stronger, ranging from anywhere from 100 times to at the most you can do it thanks to Part 2 scaling and statements from Cars at max 300 times their original counterpart strength. And that goes for all abilities he has or could ever have. Now, I won't talk about all the stands here as there's too many to go over, but I think there only would ever be 5 that could really pose a threat here or really change the tide of battle. Whitesnake Ultimate has the ability to take away somebody's abilities, that being stands mostly, and their cognitive functions, basically making them a meat puppet, basically meaning it is a one-shot ability. However, I don't think this would entirely work on Goku because, well, Ultra Instinct is literally Goku not being there, it's his body reacting, so every other form this could be effective on, except for that one. Sea Moon Ultimate Requiem basically has the ability to invert gravity, and for the most part is only really known for its potential one-shot ability when it hits you center mass, basically inverting you inside out. Made in Heaven Ultimate Requiem has the ability to reset the universe thanks to its manipulation of gravity, giving it infinite speeds. It then gains a new ability because it's reached an ultimate status of being able to single out any individual object or person and age them into dust. The World Ultimate having the ability to stop time for 1 whole hour. Very basic, but extremely overpowered. The next one being Ultimate D4C, or D4C Ultimate, having the ability to cross dimensions when placed in between 2 objects and squished. It also has the bonus ability of when Cars is near death, having the ability to switch consciousnesses with another Cars. And if 2 objects of the same origin were to meet each other within the parallel world or the main universe, if they were to come in contact, would instantly explode, as those 2 objects cannot exist in the same space. So overall, Cars is ridiculously overpowered. However, though, while Cars has a massive IQ, the ability to adapt on a genetic level, has a number of crazy hack abilities, there is still the funny case within Dragon Ball that when you're just stronger than somebody, you can technically outpower them / out-hack them. So some of these stand abilities might not work here.
I do agree. It's fortunately, like in Dragon Ball like this, it's being like the stronger guy. It really does just kind of allow you to beat people who are weaker than you, even if they have kind of like way more like abilities. Like Perfect Cell and Kid Buu have like infinitely more like unique like hacks, powers and whatnot, like regeneration, everything more than like God Goku. But nobody's being like, oh, but maybe they could pull a win on God Goku. That's the kind of the main issue with like Dragon Ball. There's, I don't want to say a lack of nuance with this, but the power fundamentally is everything, and Goku has that, I think, in his bag in this fight. The main issue, I do agree, is speed, but even again, like I think we both agree, you can get Goku to a similar speed tier if you want to be nice. So it's up in the air. But I definitely think Goku wins more times than not in this specific scenario, for sure.
Yes, but like I said at the beginning of the video, this video is going to be fun because, well, Cars is the ultimate life form, and he has been shown to adapt to pretty abstract things, and thanks to Akira Toriyama, I love you buddy, RIP the GOAT, he has stated that Saiyans and humans aren't that genetically different, which means, and all the JoJo fans just stood up, yes, novel Saiyan Cars is a possibility. Since Cars is the ultimate life form, he would have the ultimate Saiyan genetics, period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. He would be the most elite a base Saiyan could be. And we've seen in hybrids and even looking at Broly, some of these characters are objectively like stupid overpowered and have a massive amount of potential. So Cars would end up looking like Goten and Trunks from the superhero movie. Those kids haven't trained since the Buu arc, and they're able to fight Cell Max, not to a standstill, but they're able to hold their own, and they haven't trained for a very long time. Looking at Broly and how he's done some training, not a lot of it, and was able to eventually go on par with Goku and Vegeta with some time. So you're really looking at that potential, that pool of energy all together, and depending on how you want to see the statement from part 2 and how Cars is several times more powerful than like the best of the best's abilities, looking at the Hamon statement, could be even stronger than that. So looking at like base Saiyan Cars here, he would ultimately be able to handle like Battle of Gods Goku, and since we are involving character within like kind of the grander fight coming here at the end, Goku would of course let him get stronger over time. So Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 would be on the table almost immediately. Looking at the Universe 6 Saiyans and how they were able to grow and adapt extremely quickly, Cars should be able to replicate the same thing. Even then, with the Universe 7 Saiyans, looking at Gohan for example, there is like exponentially like massive gains between a lot of these characters. I think almost every Saiyan has like a moment of like rapid growth that honestly makes no sense in the grand scheme of like writing and how these characters are always being presented. Cars should be able to replicate that pretty easily. Even Vegeta during like the Saiyan saga was able to learn Ki Sense somehow when it was never the focus. He just ended up learning that for whatever reason. So that same idea would apply to Saiyan Cars here. Now, me and Lonk did talk about this before recording, but Super Saiyan 3 would also be possible here. Remember, Cars also has a 400 IQ. So what would end up happening here is you have all this Saiyan potential on top of being just a mega genius and being able to exploit like vampire powers and Pillarman powers. There's going to be some massive like Zenkai boosts and just like in this fight if it were to go down like this. And I would end up saying this is the reason why at the beginning of the video I stated it, why we're using manga Goku, is we know there is a limit, quote unquote, like there's no more Zenkais at a certain point, and eventually the manga eventually becomes like strictly technique based, because they even state that Jiren is like at the same level as Goku and Vegeta, but he knows how to use his power correctly. So the same idea would end up applying here to Cars. Eventually throughout this fight, Cars would eventually end up gaining like all these abilities, but he would end up like teetering off at like Goku's level right now, except without Ultra Instinct potentially. And I think this is where you want to probably come in and state the stuff here, because it gets kind of weird. I didn't want to take it this far, but Lonk was like, nah, let me do it, bro.
Yeah, I can't believe like I had to be the one to bring this up, but it's like with how much potential Cars has and how fast he can develop and how well he kind of just understands like his own like biology, essentially has full control over everything. There is a really solid chance if Goku starts using God Ki, he would be able to pick up on it. As we know, Vegeta learned learned Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, and got God Ki in like less than a year just from training with people who did have it. We know he didn't do a ritual like Goku did, and yet he got all the same abilities that Goku did and became as strong as him. And I don't think it's crazy to say that Cars could do a very similar thing within a fight, how high his IQ is. And just for another example of this, look at like Zamasu stealing Goku's body. He figured out like that Zenkai hack like really fast, and I think Cars' regen is probably better and faster than Zamasu's is. It's entirely possible in like this scenario where Goku just blitz right through him that he picks up on this really strong energy. Now he might not be able to sense it at first because like not even like Z warriors like Krillin and stuff can sense God Ki like right off the bat.
My god, I forgot the pressure. Holy, right?
Yeah.
Did they describe pressure? Oh god,
Yeah.
he can. Holy shit.
That's what they say, but they can feel its pressure. Cars, again, who has, I think, better normal senses than the average like Z warrior, besides Ki sense specifically, but he'd be able to pick up on that too, as we just talked about. He would probably start seeing that there's another energy going on here, and again, as a Saiyan, he would probably figure out how to use it, which is crazy.
And probably exploit it. Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning of the video, Cars really here is just Zamasu plus Broly plus Cell all together in one. He's basically the ultimate. I'm gonna be real. He was just technically a Saiyan before this. In all reality, he's always adapting. He's always growing. When the opportunity does present himself, Cars will and wants to get stronger just because he can, being the ultimate life form. So I ended up saying too as well, while not a genetic thing, this would ultimately come down to Cars' IQ. He could end up unlocking Ultra Instinct in the long run. It wouldn't be instantaneous. I'm going to clarify that now, but he could gain it if Goku is being too reckless with Ultra Instinct in front of Cars and Cars ends up adapting to it. Saiyan Cars at the end of the day would end up being incredibly powerful in an extremely short amount of time, even probably shorter than Broly did, would end up becoming as strong as Goku. So you're looking at basically like Goten and Trunks level at the beginning, and then within a matter of, I would say realistically, if I had to put a number down to it, at most 15 minutes, all of a sudden becomes one of the strongest characters in the franchise. It's dumb, but it's unironically in character, or not in character, in theme with the franchise, so it gets pretty bonkers. So on top of all of the previous novel car scaling, you just add the Saiyan effect to it, and now they're basically even. Now, coming down to who wins it is that I don't think AP durability or speed matters. They're basically going to end up being the same. That's why I ended up using Manga Goku. This is going to come down to technique, skill, and probably a little bit of genetics / potential here. So what I would say is, of course, in the beginning scenario with no shenanigans, no Saiyan stuff, it's going to Goku. It's easy. His scaling ends up beating him. In the long term of this, for whatever reason, Goku has done it in the past before where he kind of lets his opponent get too strong for whatever reason, because he's a Saiyan. He wants to continuously fight. It's in his nature. In the long term of it, because of his regeneration and his endurance and his potential, Cars would win. I think Blanc and me agree pretty concretely here on this. I don't know how would you think he'd end up winning, or are we basically the same on that?
Oh, I mean, I think the number one thing is stamina. Like Goku has, especially in the manga, terrible stamina when it comes to fights. And like again, Cars how many quadrillion years was he just like alive and kicking like during the universal resets?
He was on Mars for 10 quadrillion years. He went through 36 universes dying before he showed up in the story of George Joestar. In the long run of this, Cars is always going to be at 100% health until like he's not, and then he heals Zenkai's, starts fighting Goku again, and then like Goku can't do that. Yeah, it really is just Zamasu and Kid Buu again with Broly fighting Goku. It's really honestly bullshit, at least in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Now, when it comes down to a tiebreaker and a much more realistic 50% character, 50% power scaling scenario, there is a chance for Goku to win here. Goku wins here if he tries to end this fight early. When he would realize this is when Cars adapts way too much. He's already in Super Saiyan 2, and then he's showing signs of maybe God potential or Ultra Instinct sign. So while he has the advantage, Goku takes it and finishes it off as fast as he can. So I think that can happen unless Cars, and this is where the other half of this comes in, if Cars adapts way too much and starts using his stand abilities in full here. If he really uses D4C or or any of his like cell cloning techniques if he wanted to, Cars could end up living, and then that just ends up becoming a problem because if Goku's last hurrah is to just finish him off extremely quickly and it doesn't work, it would end up being bad for Goku. If Cars just ends up gaining Super Saiyan 3 and then combining it, or just straight up using Ultra Instinct among other things, and is just able to exploit Zenkais, Cars would win in the long term just because Goku just can't keep up with him, or just due to stand shenanigans, which is so weird because this fight ends up becoming just like a stand fight. It's just instantaneous movement versus like time stop or something. And I would end up saying here that some of those time related abilities might not work on Goku, because as much of a joke as it is, oh, your complex hacks ability, look at this shit, and Goku overpowers it, is kind of true, quote unquote. Nonetheless, it basically comes down to if Goku can recognize that he has the advantage, he has to end it early with no flaws in his technique and execution, which I think he has the advantage over Cars thanks to training with King Kai, because training with him on his world is basically the equivalent of like training for thousands of years. And I would like to note, even though Cars is 10 quadrillion years old, he hasn't been fighting for all that time, at most 100,000 years. But if Goku can't recognize that, Cars will win the war of endurance and overall take it here.
I pretty much agree for the most part. There's been so many instances where Goku has both either locked in and beaten the tough opponent before they get too strong, but there's also instances of Goku fumbling the bag, letting the opponent get strong, and then needing something to happen to help him win. And it's kind of like, it really honestly depends is like how he views Cars as like a threat. Like, for example, in the Broly movie, which technically happens slightly differently in the manga, we don't exactly have, but still Broly at some point goes Super Saiyan and whatnot, so assuming it goes like the movie, Goku was on top of things with base Broly. He was in blue, he was fine, he was winning that fight.
Better than Vegeta, like, mind you.
Yeah.
The movie.
They were chilling. They were okay until Frieza stepped in and caused him to go Super Saiyan. Another example is he was gonna beat Moro. He was on top of things. He was all good. Moro was able to snatch his hand back, get Ultra Instinct. He needed other people to help him make the Spirit Bomb to win in the end, right? So, but then you have instances of like he beats Frieza. He understands. He locks in. He beats Frieza. He could have beaten Boo if he wanted to, but chose not to. So if he sees Cars as like a big enough problem right at the start, especially, and I think he maybe would, especially with his experience with characters like Zamasu and Goku Black, I think the moment he realizes Cars is starting to learn Saiyan forms, I think he would take the fight instantly serious at that point. So I'm going to give it to Goku. I don't know. It really depends if he thinks that's exciting that this opponent suddenly learned how to be a Saiyan, or if that terrifies him and is like, oh, this is a problem.
So if this was supposed to be in character, I think Goku would be like, you don't actually want to like kill me. You're just wanting to have fun here, just like me. If we're being realistic, but if it had to come down to killing somebody, if this is like a more evil version of novel Cars, I think Goku would end up realizing it pretty early on. Like, I think this would end up happening because Cars technically even asks Dio questions while they're fighting about stands. Is that like the moment Cars goes, are there more Saiyan forms, Goku? Because this is interesting. This is Goku would be like, I'm cooked. I gotta finish this fight now, because he could end up doing stuff I don't even know. And going back to your argument from earlier, if he gets God Key or like a base Saiyan God, or like whatever the fan-made term Resurrection F Goku is, just using that a little bit of that continuity, Goku would end up realizing I gotta end this fight quick. He got God Key or something. It'd be insane. Cars unlock Super Saiyan 2, asks questions, and like Goku's like, all right, I either play with him a bit more for funnies, or I gotta end this fight now. Mastered Ultra Instinct, Supreme Kamehameha, and end it now. But of course, like I said previously, then we have like Ultimate D4C and the ability to move your mind to another body. It could get hectic. Goku eventually could waste all his stamina, and now it's really 50-50. This is where I have to say that, but I think Goku, if he catches it on early enough and Cars doesn't get like Super Saiyan 3 or any other form beyond that, Goku can do it. But I think we can leave it off at there. So like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you, Lonk, for being here.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. Hope to do maybe more stuff like this in the future.
Oh, hell yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, great. I wanted somebody with like more, has a major in Dragon Ball power scaling. I have a
degree.
I know of it, but it's better to do these kind of ideas or these videos together. I've always wanted to do this fight. It always seemed pretty interesting, the nature versus nurture thing. But yeah, I think Goku slightly takes it if he's being serious enough and realizes the potential of his opponent. So with that all being said, deuces, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.